able to win that game.
After the game, Baylor beats Brigham Young, and they do it pretty handily and decisively, and they did control both offensive and defensive lines. This is one comment from Dave Aranda when the question was brought up about how Baylor, which has had some issues with penalty, and it might have hurt them even more so at Oklahoma State, could have cost them a game against Iowa State as well, about the fact there were no penalties. Listen to how he breaks down a question about no penalties.
I think it's a good step. I think we talk about it quite a bit. I think looking at sport as a way to master yourself, I think is the approach. And I think for any type of self-mastery, there has to be a craft that you work. I think the craft, especially the harder the craft, brings out that mastery of self if you look at it like that. And I think football's hard, especially when you don't look at it that way. It's more of like an outlet. It's more of like, I'm pissed off at life. I'm gonna take it all out when I'm playing football, and so to kind of flip that around is difficult. And so I appreciate their understanding and their listening and all of it, because it means a lot to me.
Mastering a craft, saying things like that, and then also he opened up the press conference with his first comment was about, he mentioned intrinsically, like right off the top. And so I've told Mack Rhodes I'm no longer capable of going to any of his media sessions. Those are big.
Everybody calls him Yoda. That's not so much Yoda. That's more Kung Fu from the 70s kind of stuff.
Here's from Chet. He goes, in fact, Dave Aranda channeling his inner Bruce Lee. I love it. Craig?
Yeah, I mean, he's very philosophical. He's a philosophy major, but we don't need to pretend like we're all just very dumb. I mean, we can understand what he's saying. No. I mean, you know what intrinsically means, and he phrases it a little bit of a different way. He's not the first coach, I don't think, to really speak like that either. There's been others, but it is unique in today's football, especially when you compare him to, an Ed O or to any countless other number of names out there. He is unique. He's a deep thinker. I appreciate that about him. I give Dave Aranda very high marks for just about everything that he's done. I mean, you look at the transfer portal additions, which one of them's not a factor right now? Jacob Gall and Grant Miller on the offensive line, Drew Estrada at receiver, Siaki Ika on the defensive line. They've all been hits. They've all been guys that have made plays for them at one point or another. You look at the changes on the coaching staff. Which one hasn't been a success? The offense is night and day from what it was a year ago, and the best running game they've had in at least 3 years. Because even with the rule teams, they could run the ball at times, but they never really dictated the run. They could find some ways to run at times, and they'd get in a little bit of but they never just, in my opinion, lined up and shoved it down your throat and said, you're not going to stop it. It doesn't matter. We're going to keep running, and you're not going to stop it. But that's what this team does. And just the changes with Grimes and Stuckey with the receivers. You've seen growth with those guys. I mean, across the board, his decisions this offseason, check. I can't think of one that hasn't worked out well for them. So I give him a lot of credit for taking a look at that first year and us all realizing that wasn't a real year from the standpoint of COVID and all that was interrupting. But they had that first season. They took their lumps. He didn't panic. He made tough but quick decisions on the staff because he knew they had to do that, made great hires, hit the transfer portal to find the holes in the roster. And I give him a lot of credit for what he's doing as head coach. He's still relatively inexperienced compared to a lot of guys out there, but I think he's showing a lot of good signs for what's to come and how he will continue to grow as a head coach.
Doug Housel, mastery of self is a nod to Sun Tzu.
There you go.
Military strategist. Dude is a sage. Also from Orlando, 7448. Aranda is as cool as a fan.
Yeah. And you mentioned, Craig, all of the things that have worked out. I think one thing we haven't talked about on the coaching side that they changed a lot is the strength and conditioning.
Yeah.
And I think that speaks, especially the offensive line. I think the lasting effects of COVID on those guys, because they were the ones who were kind of the patient zeros of the Baylor team last year, and pretty much all of the guys in the offensive line got it to one degree or another. And it's not an easy thing to come back from, especially when you're a larger person, and to come back and play football and not be 100%. And then this change of strength and conditioning clearly showed itself in that. I think the intersection of Mateos and that hire, I thought they would be better because I thought that if that wasn't rock bottom, you didn't want to see rock bottom with how bad their offensive line played. I knew they would be better just in they'll look like they've played together kind of a thing. I didn't think they would look that much better in that you don't touch the quarterback for series and series at a time. The running backs don't lose 5 yards as soon as the ball hits their belly.
They're not being hit as soon as they can, even if it's and here's one of the notes. This is from Dylan Doyle, who caught a touchdown pass, ran for a touchdown, was very involved as well on defense. This is Dylan Doyle. We have this, Armstrong. His comment about he's a transfer from Iowa. We know his story. His father, the strength and conditioning coach, was let go by Iowa. Dylan Doyle was looking around, and this guy is making plays, and he is as good as, at times last year he was good. He was okay. He's really, along with Terrell Bernard, among others, making a lot of great plays in what moving or transferring to Baylor has meant to him.
Yeah. I love the team. It's such a cool atmosphere. We have a ton of guys that love football. I sit with JT Woods, Christian Morgan, Terrell Bernard, Jalen Petrie at breakfast and dinner when we travel, and they're always talking football. Like, they're like, hey, if you get this concept, what are you playing? And I don't think that happens at a lot of other schools. Like, those guys come in every day, and they're just so passionate about the game, and hopefully we show that with how we play on Saturdays, the passion that we have for each other and the game, just with how we chase the ball carrier, the fundamentals that we play with, and we just want that to show on the field, our passion for each other and our passion for the game.
All right, that's Dylan Doyle, and then earlier Dave Aranda as well.
Dylan Doyle, you got to give that young man a lot of credit with what happened with his father. That was a tough position for him to be in. It had nothing to do with him, but being in that Iowa program and just everything that was looming there, understandable that he'd probably want to take a look around and could have probably gone a lot of different places. I mean, he was known to be a good football player, but, Baylor makes the move and is able to bring him in, and he's been nothing but a hugely positive influence from where we sit on the team. And, to do what he did on Saturday, for those that don't know, he's a starting linebacker. He's one of their starting linebackers. He's a pretty good linebacker, and he got a sack, and that'd be good enough for a linebacker along with some tackles. But he's also, over the last few weeks, been playing some fullback because they needed somebody like him to be able to, make some holes and make some blocks. And on Saturday, he ran and caught a touchdown in addition to having a sack. So he did a little bit of everything. His celebration, or just his excitement after that first score, was awesome to see, just so genuine and real. And, he's a teammate's teammate, that's for sure. He was a great addition to this program.
All right, when we come back, Ross Dellinger on LSU and Ed Orgeron, despite the win against Florida, which was impressive, explosive. Think about all the running backs that LSU's had, and it was record, single-game rushing record was broken. Did that at any time? I even text Mike Scarborough after the game. Did that save Coach O, which he told us Friday, not even a win against Florida could save him. That ship had sailed, and the decision, he will finish out the year, and he gets the money. And Ross Dellinger will talk about that, plus the landscape of college football, much more to come. And this is Sikkim 365 Radio. Discover Wood